Okay, so for this one here, we're just looking at Gemma scored 2 goals, Hayley scored 8. So what's the total number of goals? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. 2 plus 8 is 10. What fractions of goals were scored by Gemma? So Gemma scored 2 out of the 10, or 1 in 5. Now, what we're getting at here is basically as a ratio that's 1 dot dot 5, or it would have been 2 dot dot. That's if you did, if you did like Gemma's to the total, or Gemma's to the total. If you did Gemma's to Hayley, then Gemma's to Hayley would be 2 dot dot 8, which is 1 dot dot 4. And you notice the 1 and 4 add up to 5, because there's 1 parts out of 5, and there are 4 parts out of 5 as well. Okay, so with the x's, we have 1, 2, 3 x's, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 O's. So that would be 3 to 5. What's the fraction of letters in the image that are x's? So it'd be 3 out of 8. Because you notice the 3 plus 5 make 8. What is the ratio of zeros to x's? So that's 5 to 3. And what's the ratio of letters in the image above? What fraction of letters in the image are O's? So that's 5 out of 8. So the O's to the total is 5 dot dot 8, but the O's to the x's would be 3. 5 dot dot 3, and the 3 and the 5 add up to 8. Okay, so if you look at this one, given that the simplest give the simplest ratio or fraction for each of the following. 1/3 of the coins in my wallet are gold coins. What are the ratio of the gold coins to silver coins? So if 1 out of 3 are gold, that means that the total in there would have been like 3. So, you've got 1 out of 3. So that's gold to silver. Okay, so if you want to get what is the ratio of gold coins to silver, that would be 1 dot dot 2. And notice they add up to 3. A fruit bowl contains 6 apples and 8 oranges. What's the fraction of fruit? What fraction of the fruit is apples? So there's 6 out of 6 plus 8, which is 14. So it's 6 on 14, which is 3 on 7. So what is the ratio of oranges to apples? So if you think about this, the oranges to apples, that would be 6 to 8. So it'd be 6 to 8, or 3 dot dot 4. Notice the 3 and the 4 add up to 7 parts. Okay, so if we look at the next one, a jug of cordial is made by mixing 6 mils of syrup and 600 mils of water. What fraction of water in the jug? What fraction of water is in the jug? So if you did 6 plus 600, that would be the total. There are 660 milliliters. So that means that there is 60 syrup and there is 600 water. So if you want to get the fraction of water, that would be 600 out of 660, which simplifies to 6 on 60, which simplifies to 10 on 11. So that would be 10 on 11. What is the ratio of syrup to water? So if it's 10 on 11, that means it would be, or if we want syrup, there's more parts syrup, that would be 1 to 10. Because if you think about this, if there's 11 parts altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if 10 parts of those, I might just shade them, if 10 parts of those are water, then this one here must be syrup. Okay, so if you want to get syrup to water, that's why it would be 1 part to 10. And the total number would be 11 parts. Okay, at a pet shop, there's 8 out of 10 of the pets for sale are fish. The rest are birds. Okay, 8 out of 10 simplifies to 4 on 5. So if you break this up into 5 parts, that means that 4 parts out of the 5 parts will be fish. So they're all fish. And the rest are birds. So that means that there are 5 parts altogether. What is the ratio of birds to fish? 1 to 4. You could also think about it as it'd be 2 out of 10 would be birds. So it's 8.2. Oh, sorry, that would be fish to birds. So it's 2.8. So that would be birds to fish, which is 1.4. So basically, the total on the bottom is how many altogether. But if you just want the ratio of the fish to the birds, then, or the birds to the fish, then you take the 2 to the 10, which is 1 to 4. So in a tennis set, 9 of the 54 serves were aces. What fractions of the serves were aces? 9 on 54. So 9 of the 54 serves were aces. So 6 nines are 54, so that's 1 in 6. So if you're thinking about that, as when you're doing that, that means that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means 1 out of the whole 6 were aces. So that was an ace, but these ones weren't aces, the other 5. So what is the ratio of aces to non-aces? So that would be 1 to 5. Because it's 1 out of 6. So there's 6 parts altogether. So 1 part is the ace and the other 5 are non-aces. So looking at the next one, what's the ratio of scores above 70 to scores below 70? So in a test, 5/8 of the class scored above 70. So 5 over 8 were greater than 70%, and 3 out of 8 were less than 70%. So if we wanted to get the ratio of those who scored above 70, that would be 5 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you did below 70, that would be, below 70 would be 3 parts. So it's 5, 3. So we want above 70, and below 70, 5 to 3. All right, so let's just look at this one. So what is the fraction of their time did they spend diving? So it's 3 to 1. On a road trip, a group travelling drove and rested. A group of travellers drove and rested to the ratio of 3 to 1. What fraction of the time did they spend driving? So there would be 3 out of the total parts here is 4. So 3 out of 4 they spent driving. So when you do fraction, you always do whatever the ratio is, and you always put it out of the total. Okay. But when you're talking about the ratio of the separate parts, if you want driving to resting, then that's 3 to 4. So it's 3 to 1, but there's actually 4 parts. If it took 3 days to make the trip, how many hours were spent driving and how many hours were spent resting? So driving's 3 to 1. So if, we're talking about a group of travellers drove and rested to the ratio. What is the fraction they spend driving? If it took 3 days to make the trip, how many hours did they spend driving? Okay. That's a lot of driving. Are they talking there's 24 hours in a day? So if you did 24, so 24 times 3 days, that would be 72 hours altogether. So that means that 3 out of the 4 were spent driving. Okay, so if you divide that by 4, you get 18. 4 goes into 72 18 times, and then times 3, which would be 54. So I'd say 54 hours. But the question actually says, how much did they spend resting? So the resting would be 72 minus 54. We could just do 1 in 4 of the 72 hours. 4 into 72 goes 18. So there'd be 18 hours resting.